I guess the main storyline for you guys from a Mariners perspective? What are you chasing down the most, you think?
Well, we'll be chasing down just kind of their search for reliever and one more infielder. I don't think they're going to get two out of it unless they get kind of two lower end guys, but just kind of see where they're at with Polo. And then, I think as we've moved along and they haven't signed Polo at this point, I'm guessing that may not happen and that, a trade, it becomes more viable. You look at the infield market. I know Kylie McDaniel wrote about it. Jude wrote about it today, but Brendan Donovan's out there. Ketel Marte is still out there. You've got, Brandon Lau still out there. I mean, he's a candidate. I mean, we've only rumored him every single year.
He's been mentioned every year with the Mariners.
I mean, and so and the one thing about Marte, Lau, as opposed to Donovan, is that you can DH him a little bit too to keep him healthy.
Expensive for Marte though. That is. I mean, again, I'm not. I don't care about money, and I don't think any fan should care about money. I'm just from an organization that does care about money. You start seeing $91 million?
Yeah,
over the next 5 years. That takes him till he's 36. I don't know. To me, that doesn't seem very like a Mariner-like move. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, it isn't a Mariner move. And to me, it's like, we've talked about them being risk averse about spending money. But I think, after what happened with Winker and some of those guys, I think DePoter and Holland are very conscientious now about, if you're going to spend a lot of money, you better like that guy, and other players better like him. And I don't know what the reputation is with Ketel. I think that's part of the reason why the Mariners were willing to trade him the first time, was they knew he was talented, but they didn't really know what his position was. And he, at the time, wasn't real receptive to moving around. And they kind of thought, well, you're not really in a position where you could be this hard-headed about stuff like that, And then we've heard some of the stuff come out of Arizona as well about just some of the, disappearing and pouting and some of the stuff, and so it's like, okay, you better. And the one thing is I think they really believe their culture that they have established with Cal, with Julio, and now with Josh Naylor, you can overcome that. But I mean, they have a pretty good guy. If they want to go talk to, they can go ask Josh Naylor what he thinks of them and stuff. And ultimately players will say, like, yeah, they might not like him, but if he's really good, they're like, yeah, talent wins. Because players know that talent wins more often than not. Chemistry is important, but talent wins. So I'm sure they'll kick the tires on it. And I mean, like, how many trades have the Mariners and the Diamondbacks made over the years?
But going back to the Donovan one, I guess of all the ones that have been mentioned, you had just referenced it earlier. Adam Jude's got a piece up right now at the Seattle Times where he mentions Brendan Donovan. Also, Jeff Passan had a story that I think came out earlier this week where he mentions Donovan. To me, when you look at the pieces and where he plays and the positional flexibility that he has, the fact that he could hit leadoff, to me, he makes the most sense. So, do you read it the same way?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because like last year it was Nico Horner, right? They loved him, and he still fits, but it's just a different landscape with the Cubs and where they're at as a team. I don't think they're moving him and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's like, okay, well, Donovan fits, and it'll be really interesting, like a team that you should look at, because they have so many pieces and they don't really know where they're going to put them all, are the Red Sox. They got guys all over the place, and they have, like, Jarren Duran all of a sudden might be available. Well, Mariners don't necessarily need Jarren Duran if you look at it, but he's a lot better than what they have in right field. I don't care what anybody says, but
yeah,
he could be a part of a 3-team trade that you can maneuver some pieces around too. Because, like, say the team that needs team that the Red Sox want a ready-made player or whatever, what do they want? Do they want pitching? Maybe the team that wants Duran has something you want, you can make the move that way, like it's the Cubs or whatever, or somebody like that, and all of a sudden you're hearing about the Marlins and Pirates wanting to spend money. That gums up the works of free agency. And let's be honest, like, the reason they're spending money is to avoid punishment. It's not because they're trying to get better. They want to spend money. It's because they're trying to avoid
do you think Seattle would be actively looking for a replacement in right field?
No, I don't think they are. But I think if there's a way to upgrade their talent, they could do it, and they figured they could just use, like, I don't think they want to use Canzone in the outfield. They had to use Canzone as a DH. But I mean, given what he did in the second half and given how cost efficient he is, you got to keep guys like that around. Major league experience, some major league success. You're not paying him any money. You got to keep him around for a little while longer until you really know for certain.
Do you guys feel, right, you and Jude, who are very close to it and close to people that work in there, do you get the feeling, you mentioned before, if I am surprised Polanco hasn't signed yet, and I don't know what that means. I mean, maybe eventually he comes around and they do sign him. If they don't sign him, do you anticipate more likely a move comes via a trade than free agency?
I think if they don't sign him, I think you look at the rest of the free agent market, maybe they try and buy low on a Willie Castro type and then make a trade as well. I think that's a more viable option. It depends also what your trade pieces are. Donovan doesn't cost you a bunch of money. Marte does. Horner would, or some of those guys, that costs you money. So then you're evening it out. Plus you're giving up pieces. But, yeah, and there'll be a couple teams that you aren't expected to move guys that have just silently decided when they get to the offseason, like, okay, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to move this. I think part of it is you don't know what's out there with the CBA and the labor issues coming, and some of these teams that are mid-market teams or on the lower threshold may try and like move some capital around or whatever, thinking, hey, there may be salary cap or there may be some structure coming in and they want to do some stuff and they don't want to be tied to longer terms. Plus all these teams that are like looking to sell, there are teams that are still trying to sell their franchises a little bit or listening, the Padres being one of them. I don't think they're going to trade Tatis, but man, Fernando Tatis went on the market. Holy shit. Could you imagine the bidding war for that?